a second, that looks like a good-sized plane came in and hit the World Trade Center from the other side. So this is obviously, or would seem to be, and again, I'm dealing in speculation, but it would seem like there is a concerted attack against one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
On September 11th, 2001, a total of 4 planes were hijacked and used to cause mass destruction to various high-profile locations located within the northeastern region of the United States, most notably into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. These attacks would stem into a massive overhaul of the aviation industry, forever changing the way the aviation industry would operate. One sector that was revised was air traffic control. Two of the most major changes were in the way air traffic controllers are told to relay this information to authorities, and to the methods they use to detect and communicate with the pilot in these scenarios.
But as far as what we do with pilots is largely similar. But it's just everything is just ramped up with much more, anything suspicious you tell someone. So, where before it was kind of not emphasized to do that. It's basically if you suspect that a plane is being hijacked, you have to be careful with what you say to the pilot, because it might be someone in the cockpit pointing a gun to his head saying, do this but don't say anything, and they just do it. So it's kind of a judgment call when I'm working to say, okay, is this guy being hijacked, or is he just making a mistake? Is he having an equipment issue? Is there an emergency? So it's kind of my judgment. You may not want to say, hey, Delta 123, are you being hijacked? Because what's he going to say? Yes, and then it's game over. So you just kind of have to listen to their verbal cues and use your judgment to say, hey, he's supposed to be going here, but he's going here now. And then you're calling that number. You're calling that number to call Washington, D.C. and say, hey, I've got a plane that's acting suspiciously. And that's the aspect that's taken much more serious. Where I guess before you could be flying in an airplane from Minneapolis to New York, let's say it's in your own private plane, and halfway there you go, yeah, you know what? I want to stop at Cleveland to have a hamburger. And you could tell me and say, hey, I want to go to Cleveland instead. And I would just say, all right, go to Cleveland. I'd send you Cleveland, and one thing, anything of it. Where now, if you do that, if you say you want to go to Cleveland, it's my job to say, why do you want to go to Cleveland? Where before they wouldn't do anything about it, now any little thing that's suspicious, someone wants to know about it.
Another area that has changed is that of piloting. Many new regulations have been changed to stop an event similar to 9/11 from ever happening again. One of these regulations is locked and reinforced cockpit doors, alongside strict regulations about who can be in the cockpit. These weren't generally used pre-9/11, allowing for some interesting scenarios to arise.
Like in-flight precautions, there was a cockpit door, but pre-9/11, I remember there was a flight one time where this was when I was on the Saab 340, so we had an airplane with a baggage compartment at the far aft of the aircraft. And airplanes have to be in balance when you go to take off. Well, I don't remember, and this plane was sort of prone to being heavy one way or the other, sort of depending on what the baggage versus passenger load was. In any case, on this particular flight, we had so much baggage on board that we were so tail heavy. We really needed something to counterbalance that to get us within acceptable range. And the further forward we could get the weight, the better. So I distinctly remember, as a first officer at the time, I distinctly remember the captain and I agreeing that if we could get someone in our jump seat, which is the seat in that extra seat in the cockpit, which is there specifically for regulators, and if there's an airline pilot who needs to be, getting somewhere, they're permitted to sit up there. But I remember him asking over the PA if there was an airline pilot on board. Nobody answered. So then the next thing we did was we asked for a passenger who was a pilot, who was a licensed pilot. Well, I mean, it could be anybody. I mean, we don't know anything. So we ended up having just a regular passenger sit up in the cockpit with us because we needed that weight and balance, which is completely unheard of. I mean, that would never happen now. We had a cockpit door that was secured in the sense that it slowed someone down from coming up front, but that was really it. So, that's changed. The cockpit doors reinforced, and the permission to the flight deck, even before departure, is restricted, and certainly during flight. So.
Finally, one of the most major changes is the way airport security is handled. One specific way it has changed is the requirements for the elderly when passing through. Security for the elderly has been lessened from that of the full adult regulations in the hopes of reducing the hassle of maneuvering security for the elderly, who are also statistically less likely to be carrying illegal items.
It was a lot more for older people frustrating to go through security. And now that we're 75, we don't take our shoes off. I guess they think we can't be terrorists anymore because now we're back to where it used to be before 9/11 came.
Why were older people frustrated?
Because it's a lot of work to take a belt off, to take your shoes off, to take your coat off, to take everything out of your pocket, to computers out of your bag. I think it's harder on older people than younger people. I think you can move faster, and maybe not. Maybe it isn't.
Although innumerable new regulations and requirements have been put in place since the attacks, many believe security is still but a facade. Margaret Dwyer used the term security theater when asked to describe it. These societal thoughts, combined with the recurring incidents portrayed in the news media, continue to beg the question, are we really safe in the skies? Or even right here, down below?